Welcome back, boys and girls. So we left off, let me see, I lost my spot. Okay, I think we left off on, oh my goodness, where did we leave off? I know one thing, I did not do a good job of showing you the illustration of, I didn't hold it up. I held it up, but I got too close and you couldn't see the mice. So there is Despereaux and the two hooded mice that are taking him to the dungeon. And we know that one of the hooded mice is his own brother, Furlough. And so it's just wanted to make sure you guys saw that. And we are on chapter 14, Darkness. Despereaux lay on his back at the bottom of the steps and touched the bones in his body one by one. They were all there, and amazingly, they were unbroken. He got to his feet and became aware of a terrible, foul, extremely insulting smell. The dungeon reader stank. It stank of despair and suffering and hopelessness, which is to say that the dungeon smelled of rats. And it was dark, so dark. Despereaux had never before encountered darkness so awful, so all-encompassing. The darkness had a physical presence as if it were being all its... The darkness had a physical presence as if it were a being all its own. The mouse held one small paw up in front of his whiskers. He could not see it, and he had the truly alarming thought that perhaps he, Despereaux Tilling, did not even exist. "Oh my," he said out loud. His voice echoed in the smelly darkness. "Perfidy," said Despereaux, just to hear his voice again, just to assure himself that he did exist. "P," said Despereaux, and the name of his beloved was immediately swallowed up by the darkness. He shivered, he shook, he sneezed, his teeth chattered. He longed for his handkerchief. He grabbed a hold of his tail. It took him a long, frightening moment to even locate his tail, so absolute was the darkness, to have something, anything to hold on to. He considered fainting. He deemed it the only reasonable response to the situation in which he found himself, but then he remembered the words of the threadmaster: honor, courtesy, devotion, and bravery. "I will be brave," thought Despereaux. "I will try to be brave like a knight in shining armor. I will be brave for the Princess P." How best for him to be brave? He cleared his throat. He let go of his tail. He stood up straighter. "Once upon a time," he said out loud to the darkness. He said these words because they were the best, most powerful words he knew, and just saying them comforted him. "Once upon a time," he said again, feeling a tiny bit braver. "There was a knight, and he always wore an armor of shining silver." "Once upon a time?" boomed a voice from the darkness. "A knight in shining armor? What does a mouse know of such things?" That voice, the loudest voice that Despereaux had ever heard, could only, he assumed, belong to the world's largest rat. Despereaux's small, overworked heart stopped beating, and for the second time that day, the mouse fainted. Chapter 15, Light. When Despereaux awoke, he was cupped in the large, calloused hands of a human, and he was staring into the fire of one match, and beyond the match there was a large, dark eye looking directly at him. "A mouse with a red thread," boomed the voice. "Oh, yes. Gregory knows the way of mice and rats. Gregory knows. And Gregory has his own thread marking him. See here, mouse?" And the match was held up to a candle, and the candle sputtered to life, and Despereaux saw that there was a rope tied around the man's ankle. "Here is the difference between us. Gregory's rope saves him, and your thread will be the death of you." The man blew the candle out, and the darkness descended, and the man's hand closed more tightly around Despereaux, and Despereaux felt his beleaguered heart start up a crazy rhythm of fear. "Who are you?" he whispered. "The answer to that question, mouse, is Gregory. You are talking to Gregory the Jeweler, who has been buried here, keeping watch over this dungeon for decades, for centuries, for eons, for eternities. You are talking to Gregory the Jeweler, who is the richest of ironies, is nothing but a prisoner here himself." "Oh, I'm sorry. You were talking to Gregory the Jeweler, who, in the richest of ironies, is nothing but a prisoner here himself. Oh, said Despereaux. May I get down, Gregory? The mouse wants to know if Gregory the Jeweler will let him go. Listen to Gregory, Mouse. You do not want to be let go. Here in the dungeon, you are in the treacherous dark heart of the world, and if Gregory was to release you to the twistings and turnings and dead ends and false doorways of this place, it would swallow you up for all eternity. Only Gregory and the rats can find their way through this maze. The rats because they know, because the way of it mirrors their own dark hearts, and Gregory because the rope is forever tied to this ankle to guide him back to the beginning. Gregory would let you go, but you would only beg him to take you up again. The rats are coming for you, you see. They are? Listen, said Gregory. You can hear their tails dragging through the muck and filth. You can hear them filing their nails and teeth. They are coming for you. They are coming to take you apart piece by piece. Despereaux listened, and he was quite certain that he heard the nails and teeth of the rats, the sound of sharp things being made sharper still. They will strip all the fur from your flesh, and all of the flesh from your bones. When they are done with you, there will be nothing left except red thread and bones. Gregory had seen it many times, the tragic end of a mouse. But I need to live, said Despereaux. I can't die. You cannot die? Ah, that is lovely, he says. You cannot die. Gregory closed his hand more tightly around Despereaux. And why would that be, Mouse? Why is it that you cannot die? Because I'm in love. I love somebody, and it is my duty to serve her. Love, said Gregory. Love, hark you. I will show you the twisted results of love. Another match was struck, and the candle was lit, and Gregory held it up so that its flame illuminated a massive towering teetering pile of spoons and kettles and soup bowls. Look on that, Mouse, said Gregory. That is the monument to the foolishness of love. What is it? Asked Despereaux. He stared at the great tower that reached up, up, up into the blackness. What it looks like, spoons, bowls, kettles, all of them gathered here, is hard evidence of the pain of loving a living thing. The king loved the queen, and the queen died. This monstrosity, this junk heap, is the result of love. I don't understand, said Despereaux. And you will not understand until you lose what you love. But enough about love, said Gregory. He blew out the candle. We will talk instead about your life, and how Gregory will save it if you desire. Why would you save me? Despereaux asked. Have you saved any of the other mice? Never, said Gregory. Not one. Why would you save me then? Because you, Mouse, can tell Gregory a story. Stories are light. Light is precious in a world so dark. Begin at the beginning. Tell Gregory a story. Make some light. And because Despereaux wanted very much to live, he said once upon a time. Yes, said Gregory happily. He raised his hand higher and then higher still until Despereaux's whiskers brushed against his leathery, time-worn ear. Go on, Mouse, he said. Tell Gregory a story. And it was in this way that Despereaux became the only mouse sent to the dungeon whom the rats did not reduce to a pile of bones and a piece of red thread. It was in this way that Despereaux was saved. Reader, if you don't mind, this is where we will leave our small mouse for now, in the dark of the dungeon, in the hand of an old jailer, telling a story to save himself. It is time for us to return our attention elsewhere. Time for us, reader, to speak of rats, and of one rat in particular, the end of the first book. Okay, and this is Gregory the Jeweler. Look at his face. He's got Despereaux there. Can you see him? Look how tiny he is. He's got Despereaux there. And this is what he's saying. Go on, Mouse, said Gregory. Tell Gregory a story. And he says, let's hear that part, what he says about stories are light. Because you, Mouse, can tell Gregory a story. Stories are light. Light is precious in a world so dark. Begin at the beginning. Tell Gregory a story. Make some light. And I have found that to be true in my life, that if I'm feeling like I need light in my life, a story will take me there. It's such a great way, such a lovely way to escape and and get lost in a story. Okay, so we're going to stop there for tonight, and thanks for tuning in, and I hope you're enjoying Tale of Despereaux as much as I love it. I told you next time that I am going to have you think about some other Kate DeMilo stories, and maybe you guys could research some others. I have one called Esperanza Rising. I have an amazing one called The Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane, and I have one called Gossamer. So those are the ones that I know of and that I own that I could read for Camp Read Some More. If you want to research other Kate DiCamillo stories and let me know, then we could add yours into consideration too, and we'll vote on another one. So anyway, have a fantastic night, and I'm excited. I'm so glad that Despereaux, it felt very sad there for a little while. I don't know how you were feeling, but I was so worried about him. And it sounds like he has a chance that he's going to be able to live. And I'm excited to see where this story takes us. In the next little part, we're going to be hearing a lot about a rat and named Roscuro. So anyway, I'll look forward to that next time. Have a great night.